Part two of this edition here of TW Wrestling Talk. Um, we were pretty critical earlier about the show of Monday Night Raw this past week on Monday Night Raw. The first 2 hours mainly we were critical of. Um, it's I also wanted to mention that the referee, the blonde referee, I don't even remember his name, but um, I mean this might be strange here, but there's a point in the match where Ziggler was just throwing punches, mounted punches on John Cena, lying on the canvas, and it looked like the ref was like, there was nothing wrong with what he was doing. Dolph Ziggler, Cena wasn't near the ropes or anything, and for some reason the referee's acting like he could get disqualified, and even Michael Cole was saying, "Oh, he's got to watch that he doesn't get disqualified." And I'm thinking, what? How is that breaking the rule? There's an inconsistency there. I didn't understand what was. I was like, what? Why would he get disqualified? He's not low blowing him or something, or he's not. Cena's not at the ropes. And then that referee, he counts pins pretty slow, if you notice too. And it's just, I don't know, that might not have much to do with anything, but just little inconsistencies that that WWE slips in every now and then like that. It just, you know, not good. Um, so I wish they'd watch out for that stuff. But anyways, let's move along to better things now. Um, Such as that ladder match. Um, thus far, the best match of 2013. Given they don't have much to pick from right now, but that was a good ladder match. It was a ladder match. WWE was calling it a TLC match, and I don't understand why, because when they were calling it other matches a TLC match, it was when you had to pin guys. No, this was more of a ladder match than this. So I mean, I guess it's a screw up on WWE's part. Um, so, but anyways, they had this ladder match. I was a little thrown off by it too. So then they had it hanging above. I'm like, wait, I thought they said it was a TLC. Anyways, um, they had a decent match. I mean, Ryback has his own style. People say what they want about his wrestling skills. I don't see anything terribly wrong with his wrestling skills. Um, he's not supposed to be this technical, you know, standout like CM Punk can be, but he's got his own rough powerhouse style, and I don't understand what's so to criticize about that. But anyways, the match, it was good. It had a few interesting table breaks.
Oh my god!
So, I mean, it had several good moments. I think of oh my god moments. Uh, of course, it had a relatively predictable finish with the Shield interfering in the match. Now, what I didn't understand is that some, and this is looking at things in the past too when lights go off, but what I don't understand how suddenly the lights get turned off and then the Shield, like it doesn't make sense. Do they do they like have like a little walkie-talkie or something and say, all right, dude, turn off the lights in the back, or I mean, yeah, I think it's a long one. Um, I don't I never understood that, because think how silly it would be if, like, how do they turn off the lights? How do they get the lights turned off when they want it to to do that? But anyhow, it was a decent match. Anyhow, if you look past that little detail, um, but I like for instance, they could have just why didn't they could have just snuck through, hopped over the barricade, and then started interfering too. They didn't need that little surprise element of turning the lights off, especially since it has that strange, little thinker to it. Um, but it was, then was predictable. But actually, Ryback seemed like he had a fighting chance. But at the end of it, he got power bombed through a table that was set up on the steel steps. So essentially, he got put through the table that was, lodged against the ring and propped up from the bottom step, I think, of the steel steps, and so he went through the table and essentially landed then on the steel steps.
Oh my God!
And he was basically laying there coughing up then, and which allowed CM Punk to climb up and retain, as we all thought, you know, he would. So pretty much that brought us to the oh, and furthermore, I mean, the Shield were not involved with the show at any point, up to that point at any night until the match. So you had to know that they were going to interfere with the match then. So so yeah, but and then of course we had the end promo with The Rock. Um, well, CM Punk, you know, handling a good share of it on his own for 10 minutes or so. Um, CM Punk had a lot of interesting things to say. See, thing with CM Punk is that, you know, he's this big heel now, but, he unlike anyone else, he can say, they have him, say these lines at times that speak truth, that, you know, that aren't, he's playing his gimmick, but at times, unlike anyone else, he does bring up some true things that aren't necessarily that are all part of the entertain people that make the most money and most popular. That does speak some truth to it. Whereas anyone else really who's in a feud with them, they don't, or anyone else period, whether they're face or heel, they don't really speak about. There's never anything directed towards that way, including The Rock. The Rock didn't say Rock didn't really address that. No one really addresses some of the things CM Punk says. They don't. That's the interesting thing about CM Punk here. Um, you know, it speaks some truth outside of the gimmick, and I think it makes his promos more interesting. This one definitely you could tell they wanted to step it up. Um, you know, it's more important now. It's even a bigger deal now, the WWE Championship, now that The Rock is back. Now that finally he's going to face CM Punk. And I don't mean that, offense to Rock. It just seems like yesterday we had Raw 1000 and he was getting attacked from CM Punk. So this was this was a good stuff from CM Punk. And then they even had that commercial break effect. Um, where he's commanding them, don't go to a commercial break and whatnot. And then of course they ended up kind of abruptly going to one. So that was a nice little touch there. Um, so uh, bottom line is that CM Punk handled things pretty well on his own there. And then of course, then The Rock came back. Um, and
That's what I'm talking about.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. He came out and Paul Heyman. A lot of people don't think of this. It seems like Paul Heyman like slid out of the ring then and escaped somewhere. Because if you notice when The Rock got in the ring, Paul Heyman was nowhere to be found. So um, maybe even before that, as he was entering, he was like loosening up his arms and doing kind of this funny arm dance. Um, but but no, The Rock was pumped up. The Rock delivered as always. This is The Rock we're talking here. Not much more needs to be said. Um, integrating his little humorous touches. He had a great few jokes there. Um, he integrated his humor well. He integrated his catchphrases pretty well. Um, and that's what you expect from The Rock, and there's nothing wrong with what he does. Um, he's The Rock. I don't need to say anymore. Um, and him and CM Punk, they both delivered back and forth. A couple exchanged some good lines with and it was good. I like how their promoing styles mesh, and I'm interested in seeing what happens the next few weeks leading up to Royal Rumble, and maybe after then, as it seems they could possibly extend this feud um, through WrestleMania. I'd love to see it extend up to that in a way like I've mentioned before. Um, so again, hopefully you know, they continue. It's going to be interesting. The Rock is supposedly going to be back most editions of Raw, I think, for the near future. So it'll be interesting. And of course, he's going to be on SmackDown this Friday night. So, um, first time in 10 years they advertise it as. So it's going to be a definite one to tune into. I think. As a result, that's a nice boost for SmackDown, and they need some attention. They need help at times, and this is, no different here. So this is good. Um, that's pretty much it from here. We're gonna have more discussion throughout the week as we have this edition of SmackDown. Um, and maybe I might pick up a little bit on a topic that I was talking about last week. Um, with dealing with how bad, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much would you, or 0 to 10, how much would you like to see John Cena champion? I might get into a little later this week how bad you want to see several other guys as champion. Get an interesting discussion there. Um, so that'll come later this week. Um, a little later this week. So that'll be like a continuation of this week's edition of TW Wrestling Talk. So stay tuned for that as uh, as TW Wrestling Talk continues on. And also, if you haven't already, check out the TW Wrestling Talk Facebook page, um, and the video that I posted up recently with the subscription recommendation contest. It's a video explaining a lot of it. Of course, we're going to go to the Facebook page for that, the Facebook event as well. Any questions, please ask. Thanks for tuning in to TW Wrestling Talk.